I told you guys as I travel around, it seems like everyone has all these questions on different things, whether it's, like I said, hyperinflation, currency wars, land prices, those types of things. And I wanted to spend some time and touch base on it. I think it's important. What I've heard out there now, this is where some of you will tell me I'm wrong, some won't, but people said the last couple of years, farm industry has changed their life dramatically. Folks that went from struggling and just trying to get by, now I have something. They have wealth. They hadn't had that ever, so it's going to change their lives, their children's lives, and people on down the line. So they've come to me and they've asked me different questions. You know, what can we do to protect that wealth or save that wealth? Somebody said, money never has a home. Just through your fingers and out the back door. I think my wife can attest to that very well. So I think we have that trouble sometimes at home. But anyway, I've been to the top and made some great trades, been lucky, been in some great spots, been in some spots that wasn't so lucky. Things weren't as fortunate. But I want to try and help everyone just get a broader vision of what's taking place in the country, what you have to look out for, and how you can hopefully preserve some of the wealth that you've accumulated in these last few years, because it's really been a game changer for a lot of people. And I think there's going to be opportunity in the next 20 years if we're smart. I think there's going to be some cycles where we're going to have some ups and downs, but we're going to have a better, broader picture on what's taking place. So one of the big questions every time we go out, Chase, is how about hyperinflation? Tons of gold bugs. Everybody wants to buy gold, shotguns, canned goods, dig pits, the big bomb shelters and cellars. And here's my theory on hyperinflation. Is there a possibility? Yes, but I think we have to learn and understand what has taken place or what could take place. So I like to educate everyone on like Zimbabwe. I don't know if anyone's familiar. Basically, when the British colony of Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, big problems took place. And I want you to try and, as I go through the story, apply it to what's taking place here. And you tell me your thoughts and feelings on where we're headed possibly. Rhodesian dollar replaced with the Zimbabwe dollar at a 1-for-1 value. So when Rhodesia went out, Zimbabwe came in, they nixed the Rhodesian currency, created the Zimbabwe dollar. It was worth more than the US dollar when it started off. All of a sudden, new government's instituted. They do away with Rhodesia. This little magic 3 words here, redistribution of wealth, takes hold. Do we feel we may have some redistribution of wealth taking place in our own country? I would promise you that. So redistribution of wealth starts with the government. Guess what they do? Very first thing. This wasn't fair. The whites, 3% of the population, but they own more than 60% of the arable land. I'm not focusing on the white issue. I'm focusing on the arable land issue. First thing they did was go in and say, this wasn't fair. The people that own too much land, if food becomes an issue, which it's going to eventually in maybe our children's lifetime or their children's, or water, all of a sudden things aren't going to be fair. You guys see the tone of where this is going with the world. You guys own the land. You might have an issue at one point in time where it doesn't become fair. So what happens in Zimbabwe? Government starts a major land reform act. Take 20 million acres from the farmers who've had it forever, redistribute to those who didn't. I think we've seen it play forward as we sit here and pay the big chunk of taxes that we're going to pay this time around. We're going to know where this goes. Well, obviously, farmers didn't like it. They start shooting people as this goes down. So what's the government's next step? Confiscation of privately owned firearms. Starts to play out. Civil war breaks loose. You can paint the picture, possibly a similar scenario. As you get more and more, and people get more and more taken away, there's more and more pissed off people, there's a little bit of a problem. Guess what happens in Zimbabwe? Sharp drop in food production. Well, I'll be damned. The people that weren't working got the land from the people that were, and now all of a sudden they couldn't produce shit on the land. Now imagine that playing out. Unemployment goes to 80%. Food output capacity falls 45%. Manufacturing output 29%. So the people that didn't have anything, once they got something, couldn't produce anything. Government continues to print more money and go further and further in debt. The reason they're going further and further in debt, similar to we're going further and further in debt. They weren't producing anything. They're having trouble producing anything because they're giving to the people that don't have anything. Now they can't do anything with it. Next thing, here we go. Government declares inflation illegal. The hell? Okay. It's just like when they were going to print, what were they going to use to print money, just magically pull it out. So they say inflation's illegal. They tell anyone who raises the price of goods and services, you're going to be arrested. Limited to how much money citizens could withdraw from the banks. They had it completely back-asswards. All of a sudden, life expectancy drops from 60 years of age in 1990 to around 39 years of age in 2010. Look at this bill they come out with. $100,000, all right? That bill, Michelle, go ahead and pass those out if you get a chance. Yeah. That bill goes to, this happens within months, $500,000. The bills, they just start changing them to accommodate for inflation. Look at this, $100 million bill comes out to replace this $1 bill. That turns into $100 billion. They printed, this is their reserve bank. This would be like our Fed. They came out and said, we're going to print a $21 trillion bill to pay off our debts. Just magically print one, just like they said they were going to do. This right here, $100 trillion. $100 trillion bill. I give these to my friends and family in the last few years. It's something to keep and put in their wallet. So I told my wife, I said, I want to give it to my guys that subscribe and that come to see the show. So I have to call all around, make some connections. This shows up at my house. My wife has sign for them. They come just like this. I open them up. The kids are like, what the hell, Dad, is this? Yeah, sign for them. Call a few FX traders I used to know, and that's what you have. Actual currency from Zimbabwe. I want you guys to keep it, put it in your pocket. Wall Street Journal just ran an article, said they might actually be worth something one day. They're like a rarity. I think now they're worth a shitload more than they were worth when this took place. When do you guys think that took place? Anyone know? How long back? How many years ago? Yeah, exactly. 2009. So don't think for a minute that it isn't a reality or a possibility. You'd think this happened, many moons ago. No, 2009. The bill you have in your hand, I think, is printed in 2008. Those were actually in circulation, so any of the diseases or things that came with them, on you. I'm not sure what happened. So I wanted you guys to keep it, put it in your wallets. I think it's a neat piece, something to tell your kids or something to show people. And just, keep in the back of your head that the way this thing's spiraling with this debt, I hope that we're never a nation that comes to. But when we didn't have, it's like my wife and I, when we didn't have any money, it just really didn't mean anything. I didn't really care because we didn't have any money anyway. But as you accumulate wealth and you've worked so hard for it and you want to leave it to your children and their kids, you have to be smart and try and get a broader picture of what's out there and what's taking place. So, you guys building more storage and trying to diversify into some things that aren't dollar denominated are important moves. And the more we can do that, the better off we're going to be. I'll talk more about that after we come back for lunch and stuff. I'm going to go into a deal where I talk about the Fed. I think a lot of people and farmers and others, we hear all this news about the Fed and some of this rhetoric, but I'm not sure we all understand exactly the game they're trying to play. So I'm going to lay that out for us when we come back and just talk a little bit more in depth about those things and how it's going to affect you guys longer term and what the repercussions could be. So I say let's break for lunch. Scott Odell's going to talk here. Scott is the one, Spectrum Seeds. Scott right there. Scott sponsored lunch. Scott, we've been a great relationship with Scott for several years. We loved having him down here this year. Unfortunately, we didn't have a ton of people down, but Scott's going to talk a little after we dig in and get some lunch. He's going to give you guys some ideas and things that he's seen. I've seen Scott a couple of different places around the country, so I know he's met a lot of great people and knows a lot of good info, so I'm sure he'll be happy to talk with you guys and help you out once we get back from lunch. So.